proposal for an affordable housing overlay, and those points are outlined in the agenda. I assume everyone had access to the agenda. Um, I've been thinking about how to approach this since we really haven't done any background research or thinking about this yet. And I'm kind of two minds. One is to just go through all the different points and see what people's thinking is. Alternatively, we could kind of have a group, a couple of people outline what a range could be, and then bring a proposal back to this committee in 2 weeks. Um, I'm still a little bit torn. Should we just go through the items and see kind of what the choices are? Do people have interest in doing that first? Do you feel like we're ready to do that? Should we just try it and see what happens? I mean, we may decide that we need more information about some things, but
When
anybody?
you
Anybody?
say when you say just kind of see what we're feeling, I mean, are you talking about going through all the different requirements that we would have to consider in a proposal, or do you just mean like overall, what are our kind of thoughts of how this should be shaped, or I guess.
Well, we put
Mhm.
on the agenda some A, B, C, D, and E, which are
Mhm.
affordability, locations, uses allowed, dimensional requirements, and process. Those are some of the things that I think we will have to address in the long run. And so that what I'm asking is, are we ready to just start talking about what some of our thoughts are about those issues? I I
I,
think,
I mean, I
go
think
ahead.
I can offer some comments.
I can contribute to that
Okay.
too. I think people are probably
Yeah.
ready.
I
Okay.
mean,
So
I
I'll just
think,
start by saying nothing is cast in stone. This is just a brainstorming session. We're not proposing anything right now. We're
I
just
think
trying to get out on the table what are the things we're going to need to do and what are some of our options.
that's what I was going to ask, kind of clarifying question, Laura, was whether this is kind of, affordability to take that one. I think there's two things there. What percentage of the product needs to be affordable, and then at what levels of AMI? And I think I think it's important to kind of identify that there's a wide range of options there, and that,
Right.
part of the job of the committee is to say this is the wide range of options.
Right. That's exactly what I would like to do, is to talk about what are the wide range of options, not to say, I think we should do 100% affordable, or I think we shouldn't do 100% affordable. Let's just say we could do 100% affordable, or we could do 50%. That's
Mixed
what I think
income.
we're ready for. I don't think we're ready to say any any answers yet. So let's just start with the affordability question. As Beth noted, there's two pieces to it. One is how affordable, what level of affordability, meaning based on what income, and also what percentage of the total project would need to be affordable. Um,
Here I would say, I think obviously there's like from 0 to 100% affordable, right? As the total range of options. There's also, from the lowest level that people track for affordability, which would be 30% of AMI, presumably up to something like 120. And I think it might be useful to note in talking about this a few data points. One being what's required under CPA is an interesting data point, I think. I think there's also an interesting data point of what is required to receive affordable housing tax credit financing, which
which is
requires
known as
there's
LIHTC.
right.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, for
Okay,
life
so
tech,
just
yeah.
for the audience, there's a program that is I think funds most affordable housing programs and it provides a good chunk of subsidy funds for affordable housing called, the shorthand name is LIHTC, which stands for Low Income Housing Tax Credit, LIHTC. So go ahead, Beth.
Yes, so there are two tests that you can satisfy in order to qualify for those credits. One test is having at least 20% of the units affordable at the 50% of AMI level. In order to get funded in Massachusetts, you may actually need a higher level, but that's the baseline federal standard. There's also another test which requires 40% of the units to be affordable to families at or below 60% of area median income. There's some income averaging that can happen with that second test that could allow you to serve families at a higher income level as long as it averaged out to that baseline number. But those are two data points I'd like to put on the table.
Mhm.
That's lower than I thought, actually. I didn't realize it was only 40% at 60%. I mean, while we're throwing out the data points, so the 40B program, comprehensive permit, which allows you to go outside of zoning pretty much completely, requires 25% at 80% of median.
Correct.
So the point of that is we got to require more affordability than that because or else, there's no plus for people to use the affordable housing overlay district over 40B. In fact, there may be no plus anyway, but
Yes, I think, and I apologize, I don't have these numbers right at my fingertips, but there's what counts as an affordable unit under Arlington's inclusionary zoning ordinance. Sarah may know that off the top of her head. And then there's also the range of incomes that CPA is allowed to fund is another potential set of data points.
Mhm.
and then also there's MBTA communities has another set, right? So why don't we just say what all of those are? Inclusionary zoning.
So,
What?
yeah, so if MBTA communities, we got permission to apply, right, Sarah? We
Our
got permission
inclusionary zoning.
to apply
yes.
our inclusionary, but there's no additional affordability under MBTA.
So that's rental units at 60% of AMI, but there's no amount of units that need to be other than, the minimum threshold for the inclusionary zoning to kick in.
But there is an incentive that you can have 2 additional stories if you have, this is what I don't remember. What is the percentage affordable it has to be to get the 2 stories?
If you have, I should know that one off the top of my head, huh?
Am I correct, Sarah, that it's the same inclusionary zoning threshold in the MBTA community district as the rest of the town? Is that right?
Oh, yes. And actually that makes me,
Okay.
so so 15% of units, more than 6 units needs to be, the inclusionary zoning would kick in for the affordable, for the MBTA overlay. If 22.5% of the units are affordable, you get 1 additional story. And if more than 25% is affordable, then you get the second story.
25%?
I think so. Yeah. I'm confirming right now, but a lot of percentages and percentages of
It is,
percentages.
but if you read that, you look at them, you'll see that
Apologies for
40%
everybody
is the
on this
most.
call.
Well, but 40% is the most that's required under any program. Sorry.
Carol has her hand up.
Oh,
if you
I'm
can-
sorry, Carol, go ahead.
Thanks. Some of you may recall a recent report called Data Opens Doors, and I want to comment on it because that report, one of the take-home points was that the greatest need is at or below 30% of AMI. That's the greatest need in Massachusetts. I also wanted to point out that in many instances, when you are above 80% or at 80%, but certainly above 80%, it's so close to market rate that units in that range can be hard to find tenants for in lotteries. I'm speaking generally, but I could give you some examples before the next meeting if you like. But I think those are also some important points to consider. So, Sarah, maybe if you could remind me, I could get that report to the rest of the members because it was very helpful, I think, to know where the greatest need is, so that we can make this zoning effective in trying to meet the greatest need.
Will do.
Thank you.
I guess my feeling is if we're going to be giving it a zoning incentive, that we should require more than 40%. I think more than 50%. I mean, I don't mean to, I said we weren't going to say what our opinions were. We're just going to talk about the range. So what I should say is we could require even more than 50% or 50%, and not be, I think that it wouldn't necessarily knock a project out of the box.
Could you
Uh,
repeat that, Laura? I'm not sure if you're talking about an affordable project or
Yeah.
50%
We're talking
of
about
a market.
percent of a, I mean, you're saying a mixed income project versus a fully affordable project.
Yeah, I wasn't clear on what you meant.
I guess I was saying I guess it would be mixed income if it was only 50% affordable. But maybe I mean, I guess the full range is 100% affordable. If we're going to talk about what is the full range of what we could require.
Can I ask, does anyone have information about 4 projects that HCA have built? Were those 100% affordable? Were those targeting a different thing? Because I feel like
Every one of their projects is 100% affordable.
I guess part of maybe what I'm getting at is I feel like 100% affordable is a very easy thing to talk about at town meeting politically. If you start saying like 50 or 60%, then people are going to be like less confident that this is about affordable housing specifically because you've got a large percentage of market rate units. So that's something to think about.
Right. Okay. So should we put that as part of the range, 100% affordable? And then one of the considerations would be that people might feel better about that. Because I think once we decide what the range of options is, we'll probably need to talk about the pluses and minuses of different options. I think we can wait on that. 100% affordable and affordable at what range? Well, that's the next.
David, I'm going to keep muting you just because it's very loud when you type. So I'm sorry if I keep muting you.
No, sorry, no worries.
Another document that's helpful is, and other people on the meeting may know, other members of the committee may know if the qualified allocation plan is final yet, but every time I look at it, it looks like it's still in draft form. But that has a lot of very helpful information about what.
That's a state document. You should just explain what that is, Carol.
So thank you. And I probably am not the best person to explain it, but it's the qualified allocation plan is the Massachusetts document that guides people who intend to build low-income housing tax credit. That's how I think of it. Beth may be more eloquent on that point, but it's
probably not more eloquent, but more technical. The IRS, the tax code gives each state the responsibility of drafting a plan of how it will allocate its tax credits. So that's where you get to a qualified allocation plan. It needs to meet certain federal requirements, but within that range, the state has a lot of discretion about what it wants to see in the projects it's going to give tax credits to. And it's called the qualified allocation plan, and they're usually issued for 2-year periods. And Carol, it is still in draft.
Thank you. Nicely done. Very eloquent.
And it is only for housing tax credits. It's
Yes.
not, doesn't control other subsidies. Or does it? Does it set priorities for all subsidy programs or just the LIHTC?
I believe it's just LIHTC.
Just LIHTC.
So it's a federal requirement. Okay, got it. Okay.
Can I just ask, I'm just going to throw something out to the group, and it might not, but just as we're talking about the different levels of affordability, is there any appetite or thought process for doing, I know we always affordable with CPA, the maximum is 100% of AMI. Is there any interest in looking at like certain areas, maybe like doing that missing middle income, where maybe it's like 100% to the 120, 140? I know there's some Massachusetts legislation going around with the small starter homes, and trying to kind of fill this gap of these extremely low income and then also these other developments. I mean, is that anything that would make any sense in this arena, or are we like strictly tasked with like any type of housing that would qualify below 100% AMI?
I think we can do whatever we want, but then it's not really a mixed, well, it is mixed income, but it's not, the other units are not market rate. They still have some limits on them.
Mhm.
But yet there's going to be no subsidy available for those. So that's just a consideration.
I think that question, Sarah, is one of the menu items. Whether or not anyone today is in favor of it or not, I think that is something. I think it would get questionable if it's a low-income housing tax credit program. It would be hard to average out, in my opinion, getting that. I'm pretty sure that the average has to, I think Beth just said that a little while ago, that you have to,
Mhm.
if you have a range of income eligibility, it has to average 60. I think if you have some units that are at 120, that might be challenging. And I will try to get some of the information sources where I've heard from people who do affordable housing lotteries that 120% of AMI, it's hard to lease those up, because people who have that kind of money will often want to build equity in an ownership unit on the market if they can.
That's exactly what the point I was thinking was, that makes more sense for purchasing than for renting.
Mhm.
Carol, can I ask for clarification? You said that something required an average 60%. Could you repeat what program required that?
The low-income housing tax credit program provides that if you are going to allow a range of income eligibility, the average, my understanding, if I'm recalling correctly, is that the average has to be 60%. And Beth, you have your hand raised. I hope you're going to correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, that's I mean, yes, go ahead, Beth.
I was gonna say, you're not wrong. I was actually, in thinking about the question about mixed income or market rate units, I actually wonder if that is a question for town council about the ambit of the authority of the group. Like, what is our charge, and does mixed income does mixed income housing fall into that? Or is the charge from town meeting to look only at 100% affordable projects?
Does anybody have handy the town meeting article that
I
created?
can pull it up. I was looking at it today. an affordable housing overlay committee charge. Well, the committee shall study, I can put it up on the screen. Study and prepare prospective amendments to create an affordable housing overlay district, more opportunities for housing meeting certain affordability requirements. So that's actually not as narrow as I thought it might have been. But I think it would be appropriate to ask town council what their interpretation is of that.
Okay, well, that could,
I can reach out to town council on that.
Yeah, I just,
Okay.
I think before we create an option, oh, I'm sorry, I did not fully share that language. I meant to share it. There we go. Can you see that now? Yes, okay.
Okay, great.
Huh.
Thank you.
okay.
I didn't mention at the beginning of the meeting that I apologize that I can't stay for the entire meeting. My apologies in advance if I have to leave the meeting in about 20 minutes.
So should we just leave it at that then, or should we talk about what the definition of affordable? Are we saying, it could, again, lay out some options for an average of, say, that has to be an average of 60%, but no higher than 80% or something like that, or just,
I think maybe for today it's enough to have a range of possibilities, but for next meeting or the future, we should be thinking about different, once we know from town council, different options, and then really think about trade-offs across different options as well.
right,
And percent affordable, how that's going to interact with income requirements and all of that, because it's not, I don't think it's a one-dimensional thing where we can just say this is the range we would consider, assuming there's flexibility there.
yeah, okay. So you're proposing that we put it aside for now?
I think so. I think it's hard for us to sort of come to any conclusion there because it's not just something you can decide in isolation.
No, and we're not trying to decide
Or
it.
you,
Yeah,
I agree, Max.
okay. All right, so next meeting, we'll have a little bit more information about whether we are free to make it anything short of 100% affordable, and then we can, again, just lay out the options, because I think we are going to need to, we're going to need to talk to the ARB, and we're going to get their input, and then we're going to have to then we're going to have a public meeting and get feedback from the public about it. So we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves by making a lot of decisions before we get input from the public. That's what I'm thinking, and that will come later in the schedule. We're going to talk about committee process and schedule. Okay, let's move on to locations. As you know, the last year's group made it everywhere in town. Yeah, that certainly is one option. But what other kinds of options would there be?
I mean, I think we could definitely consider, certain parcels in town that, that have already been identified as having redevelopment potential through the housing production plan. It's possible that there may be, if we didn't want to do a townwide one and we wanted to, kind of do like a trial run almost with the affordable housing overlay. There are certainly parcels and lands that I think a lot of folks, I mean, it's already been, that have been approved already as sites to consider for redevelopment, whether it's in the townwide master plan or the housing production plan. So, there's a list of about 15 parcels that is, that we've been talking about for about 20 years. So, We could certainly start with those and, consider them a little more specifically, like what those sites would need or what would make sense almost, just looking at those types of sites.
Then that's a limited list, which has a certain
Very
appeal.
limited. Mhm.
Is the new master plan AMP up going to have a list also?
I don't think that has been decided yet. I mean, I would certainly, I have a meeting with the housing, I mean, with the as the housing planner, I have a meeting, and I would certainly have a meeting with the Stantec consultant, and would encourage any of the sites that haven't been redeveloped. I mean, several of them have been, but I would certainly think it's worth looking at that list again and looking at why they haven't been redeveloped, and if there's any things that can be done, or suggestions or strategies to developing them in the future, because we don't have a lot of land left. So these parcels that are big enough to be redeveloped to qualify for a LIHTC deal, for instance, there's not that many of them.
Mhm.
This is a good time to talk about an idea I have for an exercise we can do to have committee members work with Laura and Sarah and myself to scout areas in the town.
I think if we're,
Yep,
sorry.
go ahead. Oh,
Right.
go ahead, Beth.
I was just gonna say, so that's, I think a list of specific parcels is one option. And I guess where that list is drawn from is another kind of subset of that, right? It would be, is it the list from the housing production plan? Is it another list generated by the committee, as Carol suggests? I think that's one option. Another option is to look at the existing zoning map and either decide based on that zoning map, are there certain districts that we want covered or not covered, that the town wants covered or not covered? I'm not sure, other than whole town specific lists or by zoning districts, I can't think of another way to divvy it up.
I can.
I'm sure you can, Carol. Tell me more. Tell me more.
I think that it would be a lot of, it would be very engaging if we did an exercise where we acted as though we members of the committee were affordable housing developers. We were developers who use low-income housing tax credits, and we want to build some affordable housing in Arlington. The exercise I'm envisioning would be one where we could take certain areas of town and have a member of the committee work to scout locations, not to look at what's necessarily currently in use, but to think, if I'm an affordable housing developer and I'm looking at this small area, we could break the town into different areas. And I'm looking at this area and I'm actually out there and moving around in it, just as a developer will do. They'll scout locations. We could look to see where there are logical locations, irrespective of ownership, irrespective of current use, because there are two things that occur. Some owners can get motivated to sell if the deal's right, or we wake up one day and owners want to sell, and we want to be ready as affordable housing developers to take advantage of that. So if we know ahead of time, we can act like we're going to go out and look at these areas of town. And my suggestion would be that each member of the committee pair with Laura, Sarah, or myself. I think that we'd, because of the number of members, we'd probably have to One of the scouting parties, let's call it, would have to double up, and then we would come back each scouting party, and I think that means there would be 3 scouting parties. Do I have that right? Would then come back to the following meeting and share what they observed as logical places where affordable housing could potentially go. I would prepare Sarah and Laura to match up with one of each of the remaining members. One of us would take 2 members because of just the odd number of members. But I think this would be really helpful because this is actually what developers do. They not only look at zoning, but they look at maps, certainly, but they also look at what's on the ground and where would it make sense to put it. And I think it would be very helpful for us to put on that lens and then come back and talk about locations. So how, that's just another way, besides the several that were just listed.
I wonder if there would be much
I saw
overlap,
one thumbs up.
the overlap of the go ahead.
Oh, I think
All
my
right, save it.
Zoom froze.
Yeah, I'm open to Carol's idea. Another point I wanted to make that's sort of tangential is I do think could be valuable to have, like, if the overlay is not covering all of town, have it cover enough places so that where we have places that aren't competing directly with MBTA-C developments or business district developments. It'd be helpful if there's part of the affordable housing overlay was otherwise unlikely to get developed, because then there'd be like less of a bidding war with for-profit developers potentially. It could, useful for there to be some potential for like an affordable housing developer to get like to combine adjoining lots if they had an opportunity to do so. I also think it could be valuable for the affordable housing to be distributed throughout town and throughout the different school districts rather than being too concentrated in one part of town.
The one thing I'm just not clear about is, are you talking about going out into an area and walking around to see if there are logical sites, or are you talking about starting with a list of sites? Or a list of what?
Are you asking David or me?
You. Sorry.
Oh, we would go out with some rough maps of areas that kind of like are our first cut. And each of the scouting parties would take a rough area map.
But how would you decide where the areas are? What's the criteria for?
I would suggest that we would want to break out the Arlington map based on a real rough cut of what we already know about where there. I mean, if we have a area of town that's a lot of tiny little lots in separate ownership, that's maybe not the best, but I'd be willing to take a look at the map. I mean, I know Arlington very well over these many decades, and having been the planning director and worked on some prior consultant projects when I was in the planning department. And I'm not saying that these are the only locations we could consider, but it would make a good first cut at some areas, so that I would envision the scouting parties would go out with these kind of rough area maps. And it would be smart if someone had a tablet or a parcel map of that area too, so that there could be some kind of note taking about, to then come back to the full committee with, well, this is what we saw and this is what we consider, our scouting party considers that this could be a good light tech project if you did this in that area. I'll just stop in a moment after I say that. I think that if this overlay district can propose a few good candidate locations for light tech projects, that would be pretty great. And then we can always add onto it and amend it if it's successful. And we have other locations that seem to suggest themselves.
Yeah.
We can I'm very optimistic that this committee can come up with work and that will be utilized by affordable housing developers.
Mhm.
So if that sounds, I think it'd be fun, but if it sounds like a good approach that you, the committee members are willing to consider, we could divide that work up and assign scouting parties to go out and scout locations as I described within the next, before the next meeting.
I don't know that I would have, like, I'm a legal affordable housing person, not a development one. I don't think I would necessarily have very much to add in terms of evaluating a site. I don't know that I would be able to add much
You
value
would have
there.
a scout leader. You would have a trained scout leader.
Okay.
I'm wondering what the overlap is between the areas that you're thinking of and the 15 HPP lots, because I think we should look at those too. Or
Sure.
at- I mean, I think I'm very,
Where do I find those?
the housing production plan, right?
And is it an appendix in the housing production plan?
Oh, I'm gonna letting Sarah answer that. You're on mute, Sarah.
Sorry, I'll share the link. For
Okay,
everyone.
great.
Thanks.
I think there's a lot of appeal to a list that's already been approved by the select board and the redevelopment board. I assume they both approved that. That has a lot of appeal. And I think it will to town meeting as well. But I don't off the top of my head know what it is, so I'm sure I've looked at it in the past, but not recently.
I'll definitely look at that.
As we planners know, it's nice when people refer to our plans.
I think I think the exercise would be very good for very good experience for the committee members. And it would be a good learning experience. And not to the exclusion of this list of the housing production plan. That would be great. But I think in a contained few areas of town, I think it would help with visualization of affordable housing development and help to kind of turn our minds towards what we hope will be the end result of this work. We really do want it to make sense to the people who will take it up. We want it to yield good results and not stay abstract.
Yes. Agreed. I can't move it.
So, okay, let me save this.
There we go. Nope, no, wrong thing.
Okay.
Oh, this is the whole production plan here. So, okay, we can't look at this right now unless somebody can just tell us where to go.
Sorry, starting on page 95.
Oh, okay.
Why don't we, what if
Carol,
I
you're not, can't hear you. Oh, Carol sounds a little ill. Okay.
Do you want me to screen share the properties? Is that what we're trying to do?
I'm just looking at it because I wanted to see what was on it. Okay, all right. I don't need to look at it now, though. I can do that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good use of time right now to do that, but
Definitely not.
if
Definitely not. Okay. All right. Well, we have a couple of different approaches. I think one more approach that I had been thinking was, we could set up a criteria, all parcels over 10,000 square feet in XYZ zones or something like that. But rather than saying these
So,
10 parcels, I
okay.
think we can do that.
So another way of forming the criteria would be based on the size of the parcel.
Size and perhaps location.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. So we got some options there too. Okay. So I guess Carol, you want to be in touch with people about,
yeah, I can follow
Or
up
they have
and
time to do that.
unless there are any objections to doing this, I can follow up with people and get people paired up with scout leaders. And we can get the scouting parties scheduled and oriented and out pounding the pavement as light tech developers. Just to get that information to add to the possible list of ways to determine where it should go. Thank
Okay.
you.
So the next thing is uses, which I think really what I was getting at, or we were getting at when we put this on the list, was whether we need to require mixed use in commercial zones, or whether we can allow mixed use versus require mixed use. And I think the issue there is that it's not necessarily helpful financially to a project to have a little commercial space on the first floor. And we're talking about projects that require a lot of subsidy and that are financially on the edge anyway, are financially difficult to develop. And so,
You can't use light tech to finance the commercial space is also an issue.
mhm. Right. So, I,
So that's definitely where it gets a little bit tricky, Laura, because the Arlington Redevelopment Board had some concerns, with locating the affordable housing overlay in the business districts, without any sort of mixed use component, because they'd like to. So, we'd really have to think about how, if there's a way to potentially work through that hesitation with the redevelopment board. Like there are certain uses that, I mean, if there are certain types of uses that could help as part of the affordable housing project, and could still, be technically considered mixed use. I'm thinking of like Arlington Eats, or, having some sort of community space. I don't want to use that term because that's a different type of use, but having a type of use that is compatible with an affordable housing development. I mean, is that something then that could qualify, Carol? Do you know if it's like a services office
Yeah.
or?
Well, you can't have an office, but you can use LIHTC for certain types of community service facilities that provide services
Mhm.
to low-income residents. It doesn't need to be of the development, could be of the neighborhood. It's a very technical tax definition, but oftentimes you can have like a daycare or something like that that serves families. So
Okay, so that's great. Because daycare is definitely permitted in all of the commercial districts. So maybe we can just look at something like that, and I think that would alleviate potentially some of the concerns, that the redevelopment board had about not.
I'd like to also look to see where we end up
David.
wanting to put it, because I'm sorry to interrupt you, David, you had your hand up first. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wanted to mention that I feel like, if we're looking at like the sort of the previously identified spots, a lot of those are in B districts. And so to some extent, it's choosing like how much do we want to have, larger parcels near public transit that might be good that happen to be the B district, or like the alternative is to focus on residential zoned areas, which are like the majority of town, but a lot of small parcels that might be harder to acquire in such a way as to enable a larger development.
Right. So you're saying it's as part of that big consideration, you include the residential districts and
Yeah, well, I guess I sort of feel like, if I recall correctly, the ARB both said, "Oh, we don't want it in business districts without mixed use," and also they were sort of leery about it being in the neighborhoods, whatever that means. And so it's like, wherever we put it, it's going to, change that part of town and not, and be different than what's there right now. And so we sort of need to figure out what sorts of impacts we think are the best trade-offs for our goals.
Mhm. Mhm. Impacts.
And I think a lot of that is going to come down to the community. I mean, right? Like whatever, when we do have a community meeting, I mean, these are types of things that, there are certain, the committee the town meeting wants us to explore an affordable housing overlay district. Town meeting has voted to approve the housing production plan, which, recommends exploring an affordable housing overlay district, townwide master plan, all of these things, are have been voted and approved by town meeting. So I mean, there is an appetite to explore this type of thing. So I mean, if we don't do what needs, if we don't make it usable, then we're what are we doing, right? So
Yeah.
there has to be some, we have to, educate the masses enough for them to understand the limitations that these affordable housing projects have. It would be lovely if we could just build, 5 affordable housing units, here and there and spatter them around and they would get financed and everything would be great. But like, that's not a reality, right? So, it has to be either density, these smaller parcels need to be more densely built up to get enough units, or we need to have big enough parcels that are only available in these residential districts, to be able to develop them at lower heights, but also, bigger scales. But the community is definitely going to have an opinion and there are going to be thoughts. And so we have to balance too. I don't know how.
We'll get there.
Right.
I'm sorry, I have to leave the meeting. I really apologize. I look forward to chairing the next one.
Is it 8:30 already?
No, I just
What
have to
time
leave.
from today? Okay. Oh, okay. 7:24. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Carol. Um, okay, well, the next one is dimensional requirements, and I think that this might be, I don't know how to frame this conversation yet. There's kind of small, there are many small requirements within this. Does anybody have any thoughts about I mean, I think we do have to address it with the public and the ARB and get their feedback on it, but do you want to try to go one by one to talk about how to address height, setbacks, minimum lot area, minimum number of units allowed on a lot, I think is an important one. Um, Max? Oh,
Oh,
Dave,
sorry, David had his hand up first.
you did.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like the way the MBTA C districts did this worked pretty well, where it basically said that a lot of the normal constraints don't apply and focused on number of stories, which I think is relatively easy for people to visualize as sort of the deciding factor for the most part. So I'd suggest that we might want to take a similar approach here, where we look at sort of the requirements that developments are exempted from an MBTAC may be exempt from a similar thing, and focus on the number of stories allowed as like a major factor.
And really the only one that needs limitations, you're saying?
I think that would be great if we can sell the ARB on it. Yeah, I mean the ARB like the MBTAC thing, so I think that's at least a great place to start.
Uh-huh.
I think David's point's a good one there. I think we talked either the last meeting or the one before that about the number of units required just to make any of these projects make sense financially. And I think that we just need to make clear that we're communicating that side of things well, because I think we will be talking about larger projects, and there, you know, you have to have the FAR make that viable based on the lots we're going to look at. I think that in some ways, thinking about some of these issues after we sort of have this set of properties that make sense to include is useful, and working that way.
Yeah. I think that does make sense. I think it's, yeah, I feel not ready to go through all of these and come up with answers or even a range of answers. So then the last one is process for approval. So MBTA communities, the state set out that it was a site plan review requirement, which is a review by a board, but it's not it's not the same as granting a special permit. It's a little bit, I'm not 100% sure how that's working out. Sarah, do you have information about that?
I do. So it's a site plan review. It doesn't have to, they don't have to meet obviously all of the same setbacks and dimensional standards as a project would under environmental design review, which is like a special permit application. The idea is that, you know, the applicant meets with staff beforehand, and, you know, we go through everything, you know, and ideally, you know, the applicant would just have to go to the board to present their site plan and, you know, meet as many of as many dimensional standards as they can. It's, you know, it's been going well. You know, it's a little bit bumpy right now because, you know, we've had a lot of applications come in for site plan review, but we haven't had a lot of these projects get approved, as everybody's still finding their way through MBTA overlay district. You know, we have a lot of questions that have come up that, you know, we're trying to figure out what was the intent of, you know, the spirit of the bylaw versus what is actually, what does the community want? But I think, you know, the idea is that we need a process that is quicker than environmental design review for an affordable housing overlay, because time is money and affordable housing developers do not have money. So, you know, trying to streamline a process enough to entice an affordable housing developer to come to town is, you know, it's really tricky to balance that with making sure that all of the needs of the community are met and, you know, aren't, you know, so we've had a couple of applicants that have not been able to just kind of slide through MBTA, and for good reason. You know, some projects have not been great, but I think, you know, I know that there's some hesitation on the redevelopment board to not even require site plan review. So I think it's something that we would have to expect from the redevelopment board, that there might be some pushback if we don't at least require a site plan review.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beth?
Max, were you raising your hand non-Zoom wise or?
I was, but go ahead and then I'll go after.
Okay, I just, MBTA needs to be as of right, Sarah? Okay,
With site plan review, if you call that as of right.
well, I mean, it had to qualify as of right, or we wouldn't have gotten it signed off on by the AG, so.
Right.
I mean, the charge from town council or from town meeting was affordable housing. More opportunities for housing, meeting certain affordability requirements to be constructed as of right. So I think we wouldn't want to impose anything more than what's under MBTA communities as the option for as of right.
Right. Agreed. Right.
I have a question for maybe it's Beth or Sarah about site plan review is what discretion does the ARB have in site plan review? Is it if they have met met with the planning officials and complied, do they have discretion to turn down a project or to require changes? Or how is it substantially different from a more like the meetings where the ARB can sort of request more changes?
I mean, the developers are encouraged to try to meet as many of the development standards of the underlying zoning or, through the MBTA overlay as they can. The board, does have the ability to, make sure that the project is complying with, with standards. I mean, with, engineering or, transportation, traffic impact. So there are things that the developer has to provide to ensure that the project, complies with, they can't just come in and build whatever they want and say, it's MBTA overlay to heck with everything. But they do have less discretion, in terms of design, the design of the building. If the, you know, they have less review. I don't have a definitive answer for you yet because we haven't yet found the bounds of what the ARB is able to deny, but we've, the applicants have all been trying to work with us developers to get a satisfactory, plan. So we've been fortunate so far. I think that nobody has tried to push something that the ARB has really not been comfortable with and hasn't challenged. If that makes sense.
But it is kind of a gray area. So.
It's gray. It's gray.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we should just follow the HA community's process then. I mean, we could talk about. Yeah, I don't know what other options.
I mean, I think that there's a fair point for that. As David was saying, I mean, it has already been town meeting and the residents have all become at least comfortable with the idea of MBTA overlay district with the density, the heights, I mean, that is something that, it's at least familiar at this point or getting more familiar. I don't know that it's the answer for the affordable housing overlay, but it would at least allow, the parcels, just for those that don't know, MBTA overlay district does not cover any commercial properties. It's only residential properties. So, if there were sites that were zoned commercial, that don't fall under the MBTA overlay district, I mean, it could, theoretically, we could put the affordable housing overlay district on those, but, then we have the balance of making sure that, mixed use is a component of it, because I don't know that the ARB would support. They might, but I don't know for sure that they would support something that didn't have a mixed use component on at least the business districts along the major corridors. At least, and meaning like Broadway and Mass Ave.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, that's yeah, we'll find out. But I think what we're saying is there's not a lot of choices under process. We're not going to go to a full special permit because doesn't serve the end we're talking about. So we'll keep it with site plan review, and maybe I'll just, I don't know if I was gonna, should I just remove it from the list of policy points because it's not really up for discussion.
I mean, that makes sense to me. I don't think it makes sense for us to apply any additional requirements to affordable projects that wouldn't apply to other projects. And I think site plan review is like the sort of least overhead that we're likely to get away with. So I think focusing on that makes sense to me.
Okay.
I
Anyone
agree.
else?
And I mean, and under the expectation that these are going to be, you know, relatively substantial buildings that we're trying to do. I mean, I think, you know, site plan review is appropriate. Having, you know, a neighborhood meeting with the developers, a developer meeting with the residents or neighboring properties. You know, it's what is required under site plan review. And I think that, you know, I don't think it's inappropriate, and I don't think any affordable housing developer would expect not to have to meet with residents with any project that they're proposing. So I don't think that's, you know, I think it's, I mean, I think that that's
Are you
completely
saying
fine.
it's in the site plan review criteria somewhere, or where is that written?
And under the rules and regulations for the Arlington Redevelopment Board, I think it says that,
Oh, okay.
I'm
okay.
pretty sure it might not, maybe it's not required. Maybe it's like strongly encouraged. Let me confirm the language. It might be strongly encouraged,
Okay. Well, we can certainly
strongly encourage it.
tighten that up. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna just take that off. I think I'll try to sort of write up the different things and try to get the options out there. So that we can talk about it again at the next meeting and maybe move it. You know, maybe people can still obviously add things and change things, and then we'll have sort of a starting document to discuss with the ARB and the public. Does that make sense? Are we ready? Well, the next item on the agenda has to do with our process and schedule moving forward. And I was hoping we would discuss the ARB and the first public meeting. So hearing no objections, let's move on to number 3, committee process and schedule. There is an ARB meeting November 3rd. I don't know if we can get on that agenda. No, too late? Oh, darn. Too late?
I think November 3rd is a pretty packed agenda right now, so I can double check with the chair tomorrow, but I think we already have 3 applications that are going to be heard on that evening.
Okay.
And
Well,
then,
go ahead. Do you know what the 14th is? Would
then
that be, I'm not sure, it's probably not the 14th. What is it?
I think it's the 17th would be the next meeting,
17th.
which should be okay. But
Okay.
we should probably have,
We should
so
probably,
we're going to have something to present to them,
Yes.
right?
yes.
So, and is that something where, I mean,
Excuse me.
it's a little more than a month away.
Right, and
Would
we'll
it-
have 2 meetings between.
The Affordable Housing Overlay District will have 2 meetings.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we, I mean, when would be kind of working within that time frame? When would be an appropriate time to do like a community meeting? Is that, you think, after the redevelopment board where we get their feedback first? Or would you think hosting something before then, or anybody have any thoughts?
I mean, it sort of feels like if we're able to do a community meeting before then when we present to the ARB, we can sort of say, you know, at our community meeting, you know, people were enthusiastic about ABC. Like, I feel like that could make our presentation to the ARB more convincing if we're able to do that.
I think more process is better than less process. So I think if we can do it, I know it's more work, but I think that's kind of the gig we signed up for.
Agree.
Well, we definitely have to do it. The question is whether we do it before we talk to the ARB or after.
I think it might end up being both.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Beth.
No,
no,
Max.
that was what I was going to say.
I think we need community engagement and feedback early because the ARB is going to want to know what we've heard about it. But then also the ARB is going to help us refine things a lot by sort of figuring out what's possible with them. And then we'll that will lead to changes in what we're thinking about, and then getting more community feedback from there. So I think ultimately we'll end up with, probably at least two separate meetings. It'd be useful to have one before the ARB.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what we want the public meeting to look like. What the work that we just did to sort of lay out some of the options, I mean, should that be the structure of the meeting? So really, I mean, after we explain the charge and the history and the LIHTC restrictions, I think that's pretty important that we talk about that up front, about, that we do have some parameters that are set by not us.
I think that's really important. I also think that some sites of the kinds of places we're talking about is really useful. I think one thing that made MBTA communities work is people knew exactly where we were talking about. It wasn't abstract. It was, these are the areas, these are the neighborhoods, this is what things could be. And having sense of, here are the kinds of places that would be affected and what could be done here is really valuable to make it concrete and clear.
Right. So that's kind of the that location question. Carol had one approach. We talked about the HPP list, looking at that as well. So that's also something we can talk about, options. I mean, I feel like it's helpful to present options, not that you wouldn't want to hear. I mean, people can always add options, but I feel like to just open it up, people, it'll be too.
Yeah, I think presenting options is good, and I think ideally we would present like maybe more possible locations than we think we're going to end up actually using, so that we can get feedback. As like, do you think that these business zones along Mass Ave or places a bit further back from Mass Ave that are resident, like just different types of things, and if we present more locations, then it'll be easier for the community to express clear preferences where they think we should be focusing.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I like it. I think that makes a lot of sense. So we need to schedule it, find a location, and do outreach, and structure the meeting, and run the meeting. So that's a lot of things, 5 people for a committee that is effectively only 6 people. But I think we all are going to need to do our part.
Well, let's start with, would we reach more people with an in-person meeting or a Zoom meeting? Like, I'm just,
Probably Zoom, but we do have a lot of people here we could ask. At the end of the meeting, when it's during the public's, let us know what you
please let us
think.
know in the chat.
Or can they talk in the chat?
I think so.
If anybody,
Put in the chat if you would rather have
public members
in-person.
have an opinion about that, give us a chat. I'm going to just grab my phone. I'll be right back, just so I can have my calendar.
Because I mean, technically we could do a Zoom for the community meeting. And then the Arlington Redevelopment Board meetings are always in person. We don't have a hybrid option, so that could be another opportunity. If somebody wanted to come in person. Laura was saying that it could be that we do a Zoom meeting for the community meeting first. And then our Arlington Redevelopment Board meetings are always in person. So that would be an opportunity for somebody that wanted to come in person and be able to participate. And then we're offering 2 options. I don't see, Zoom is easier for many people.
Wynell says Zoom.
Thank you,
Okay.
Wynell. Thank
Okay,
you.
that's one vote.
We
Yeah,
got 14 other people on there.
Zoom.
Zoom. All right.
That seems like if we do a Zoom meeting, then one thing we could do is we could have a survey for people who attend the meeting to fill out, like where we give them the multiple choice questions or whatever, in addition to some like free response questions, so that they can express their preferences after seeing the presentation and the background and so on.
Okay, we have one vote for a hybrid meeting. That
The
limits,
hybrids always get tricky, because finding meeting space that can host a hybrid event is very, very challenging. Because if we end up with too many people, then we get pushed out of, say, the redevelopment, the select board chambers, or
police
um,
has that.
police station. I mean, then you're kind of limited. So you can say, okay, we're gonna probably not get more than 20 people in person, and then there are rooms. But yeah, I can't handle the scale. The police station is tricky. But I think uh, thank you, Jason. Yes. So maybe a Zoom option for community meeting. And then if we end up needing a second community meeting, then we could look at different options. But hybrid is just really, really difficult for the larger scale meetings. And I know that because we get asked all the time at redevelopment board meetings to do them hybrid, and
Yeah.
it's just the acoustics become problematic, and people can't hear and people can't see. And so David, I do like your idea about a survey. So, perhaps one or two of us could start thinking about a survey, work on a survey to present to the board or to the committee at the next meeting. If we thought that that was something that's appropriate and we can get it online, and it's something that we could potentially, we could, share with residents beforehand, before the community meeting. We can let folks know about it at our comprehensive plan update meeting. We have a big one that's coming up, a community meeting on October 30th. We could certainly pass out information on the Affordable Housing Overlay District survey. If anybody wanted to help.
Are you talking about a community-wide survey as opposed to a survey at the meeting? I thought you were talking about, like, if we put out options, then we can have a survey at the end saying which option did you like. But you're saying much broader than that, to people who can't come to the meeting even. Is that what you're
Well,
thinking?
I mean, I would say that if we're putting together the survey, then it would make sense to have and maybe it's like, we encourage people to like look at the slides we present or look at the recording of the meeting or something before filling out the survey so they have context. But I feel like it might make sense to try to not limit it just to people who are able to attend the meeting so that we get as broad participation as possible. And in terms of putting together the survey, I'd be happy to do that or be a part of doing that if we think like a Google Forms style survey is appropriate. I could definitely work on that.
Right. So, like, how much lead time do we need? Knowing that there's the big AMP up meeting is coming up, and then there's the Arlington Heights meeting coming up, which I'm very curious about. We're probably talking about November.
So Sarah, you said that the comprehensive plan meeting was October 30th.
Correct.
So it sounds like we might want to try. And then the next meeting of this is on maybe the 27th. Is that right?
Our next meeting
Yes, of this group.
Yes,
is
the 27th.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
or it will be.
it could make
Mhm.
sense to try to like have some materials ready by the 27th so that we can look at them and we can decide if we think we're ready, and then if we think we're ready, have something that we could that people could be talked about or mentioned at that meeting on the 30th, but then have the actual community meeting be in November before the ARB meeting.
So between October 27th and November 17th. So there's 2 weeks in there. There is a holiday in there. Veterans Day. I actually am not available on the 10th, so I'm not to rearrange everybody's life for me, but I don't know if other people have that. Does other people have a conflict on the 10th? It's like in the middle of no, everybody
Is
else
the
is.
11th the holiday?
11th is the holiday, yeah.
I would probably assume we shouldn't do it on that day because a lot of people will be away.
Yeah, yeah. No, I didn't mean to do the public meeting. I meant our next meeting is scheduled for the
Oh,
10th.
oh, oh.
Let's not worry
What
about
the second and fourth meeting, like these second, the second Mondays have been terrible for us. Like every meeting has been rescheduled.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I can certainly run through the calendar. I think if we're trying to make a of November 20, wait, which ARB meeting were we going to try to
November
present
7th.
at?
Is there
The 17th.
the 17th?
Yes.
There should be a meeting.
Yes.
And then
So then public engagement the week before.
the 12th or 13th, maybe? Do you want to check those two dates?
Yep. The 12th has a transportation advisory committee meeting at 7, library board 7:15, tree committee at 7:30. There are a couple less conflicts if we were to do it on the Thursday, the 13th. There's an open space committee meeting on 7:30, but it's only one meeting versus 3 meetings on the other one.
I just have to say that there's a fundraiser for Your Arlington that night.
Then that's probably not a great night. But I mean, we could certainly, I mean, there's only so many days in the week.
Right.
No.
So
So
there's,
the 12th could
we
be
could
fine.
do it. We also could look at like the 6th, November 6th. I mean, it's a little sooner, but we'll just blitz. We'll just do what we have to do fast.
Yeah, that's a very busy night. Actually, I wouldn't be able to do that.
And how about the
The 5th has that's the community forum for the Heights Business District.
5th? I hate scheduling meetings. There's just not enough evenings.
Yeah. Well, I would say November 12th looks
Let's do November 12th. And
November 12th looks
we'll
like
send
the best for a
apologies to the
tentative
Transportation
schedule.
Advisory Committee and the other committees.
We can tentatively hold that day.
Okay, good.
Okay. So, and then,
Great.
so
If-
we'll work on maybe Zavid and Max, you're the community engagement specialist. I mean, I feel like perhaps you should be involved in.
I'm happy to be involved. I don't think I'm usually thought of as the community engagement specialist in the
What
in that
title do you
direction.
want? What title do you want? We'll give you one.
No comment. If we're meeting on the 12th, we're not meeting on the 10th then, is that right?
So I think the 12th would be the community meeting. Is that
Right.
what we're talking about, Laura?
Yes.
We're on the same page, right? Yes, the community
but-
meeting, and then the 10th we would not be meeting because
Okay.
I think that it's
It's tricky anyway. So yes,
It's
I think
tricky.
let's not meet on the 10th, but I think we can assume that we might be meeting in small groups, getting ready for the meeting beforehand. Like I would like to work on the policy questions, but I would like someone to work on it with me. So
Mhm.
to bounce ideas off of, make sure I don't miss anything, that kind of stuff.
Okay. So in terms of putting together some sort of a survey of some draft to bring to the next AHOD meeting, Affordable Housing Overlay District Committee. I really struggled with that one, sorry. That would be on the 27th. Who would like, so Zavid, Max, would you like to participate with Zavid on that, or
On the survey?
is that on the survey, or Laura? Let's volunteers. Who wants to do it?
You need to do
I'm
it.
happy to work on the survey.
Okay, so me and Max, I mean, if there's a third person, that still wouldn't be quorum, so a third person could be involved if someone else wants to, or me and Max can focus on it.
So maybe I can help out a little bit just from the technical aspect of posting online and putting the form in some sort of format that we can disseminate through town channels, if that works.
Sounds great.
Okay,
And-
I'd like to work on the presentation of the options, and also, I guess Carol might want to talk about the sites. So should I just do that with Carol? Between us, we'll cover both.
Sounds good.
Okay. Outreach in general, do we need more than that, or Sarah, do you think that's something you can kind of cover?
Mhm. Yep.
I don't think we're going to be going door to door between now and then. Outreach, Sarah, what else did we mention as tasks that we'll need to, is there anything else?
I think that's it for the moment. I imagine for presentation, it's probably going to involve a lot of technical questions that maybe Beth would be good, to assist with on that as
Yes, definitely,
our
definitely.
technical expert.
Yes,
I can talk about technical stuff as long as it's legal. If it's about development performance, that I'm gonna need to Laura.
We're talking
Well,
about for the
that's a good point.
presentation.
That's a good point.
Ah.
I think that we will probably, I know that Carol would like to talk to some LIHTC developers, and I can certainly talk to Erica to get, and that kind of goes with the options that we present, because we want to make sure we're presenting real options, not, I mean, not things that are not doable. So
Mhm.
we'll take that on as well.
I do think if it wouldn't be too much of an imposition on either Erica or someone from our staff, just to kind of briefly explain the economics of a tech deal, I think that would be very, very helpful in setting the groundwork for
As part of the,
as
yeah,
part of the presentation.
okay,
Because none of us are really the numbers people.
right. Okay. Presentation. I'm happy to ask Erica if she feels like comfortable doing that, and if not, we can, we'll find someone else.
We'll find a plan B.
We'll think,
Um,
we'll put on our,
And I will also, my other task was to reach out to town council to determine the scope of affordability, the threshold of affordability. So,
Thank you, Sarah.
mhm.
so I think our next meeting then is going to be talking about the public meeting and kind of getting our ducks in a row. Okay.
Okay.
And then you'll also get us on the November 17th agenda for ARB. Sarah, yes, great.
Yes, or let you know ASAP if that's not a possibility. But
Right. So I think that is, I'm covering number 4 and number 5, the date that we're not going to meet on the 10th, but our next meeting is the 27th, and we know what we're going to do at that meeting, and then we're going to meet with the ARB after that.
yes. And we are tentatively looking at a community meeting date for November 12th. Is that what we said? November 12th, November 13th,
November 12th, yes.
November
I think more
12th.
than tentative, I think it's got to be, yes, unless there's a reason not to, that we
Yes.
aren't aware of, I think
And
that's,
I'll reach out. I'll do the check with our public information officer and just make sure that I'm not missing any events that she has in the queue.
okay. And will
but-
you notify the ARB?
Yep,
We definitely want
absolutely.
there. That's
Yep,
pretty
will do.
important, I think.
Agreed. Okay, so we'll confirm the dates. I'll let everybody know on
my
that
God.
front.
That was fast.
All right.
Right, and now we will open to the public. If no one, wait, does anyone else on the board have anything to say? All right, well, we'll open to the public. We're going to ask you to keep it to 2 minutes. Raise your hand so we can know who would like to speak. I do not see, do I? Winnell, go right ahead. You're on mute though.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. Winnell Evans, Orchard Place, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 14. Two very quick comments. I'm assuming that minimal and possibly even no parking might be the way that this will work for some of these projects. So I think that that has to really drive potential sites. There may be a 20,000 square foot lot in Morningside, but there's no way to get back and forth from there. And it tends to be people with lower incomes who work jobs that are not necessarily public transportation accessible in terms of location or schedule. A lot of people cannot ride bicycles, despite the fantasy that we have in town here. So I think it's really, really important that we think about where people will go. I also, as the conversation went on tonight, there is such a plethora of avenues now that the town has set up. We've got the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we've got MBTA, we've got 40B, we've got inclusionary zoning. Now we've got maybe an affordable housing overlay. And I realize that the MBT is not specifically about affordable housing, but it seems like it might be really helpful both for potential developers, for town meeting members, and for the conversation going forward to create some kind of a graphic that shows what each of these avenues can do, does not do, whether it requires a special permit, whether it's site plan review, basically the things that you guys covered tonight, where some of these things might happen, what the restrictions are, what the dimensional requirements are. Just seems like that could be very helpful going forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Grant?
Yeah, just listening, and I recognize you guys are going to have a challenge with what type of zoning parcels to lay the overlay over. You have industrial parcels, you have business parcels, and you have residential parcels, and you're going to have groups tugging you either way to say, don't do anything industrial, don't do anything in the business. And obviously we hear enough about don't do anything in the neighborhoods. I don't think you can exclude any of them. I mean, the goal, at least what I understood the goal here, was that to build these affordable housing complexes, and we all seem to say that we want affordable housing in this town, and to weigh the calculus for affordable housing are these larger units that need larger lots, which are scattered all over town. I live next to the Germain Lawrence campus, which right now is the contented home of several McLean hospital programs, and I think they'll be there for a long time. But if that parcel were to come free, that is a R1 parcel. I would think it would be remiss if you would say that parcel sitting in the middle of an R1 zone, it would be off limits because we're afraid to touch the neighborhoods. So I think you have to cast a wide net, and maybe you limit it on lot size. I don't think anybody has visions of a 7,000 square foot lot and, hosting a 4-story building. But I think these larger lots, from what I understand, are all over the place, and you need to cast a net to catch any of them that might provide an opportunity for the subsidized affordable housing that I hope sincerely we say we all want. So good luck.
Thank you. Thanks for your support. Jason Haas?
Thank you guys for all the work you're doing. This is really important stuff, and I'm glad to see it. One thing I've been particularly drawn into the process for the MBTA overlay currently. And one thing that I've noticed, still learning the ropes here, but is that um, the 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 overlay is distributed a lot more on um, two-family zones than on any single-family zones. And so I just, I think going forward, not only it's not about, whether or not there's affordable housing there. I think that's great. It's a necessary good for our community. But there are some aspects of like ongoing construction, right? So as MBTA communities is under process, we're seeing a lot of construction involved in these two-family communities, and that the burden of that construction is not really borne out by the single family neighborhoods. And so I just hope that you guys, as you consider the overlay, I mean, I think some of Grant's ideas were good just now, but, keep that distribution of, the construction burden in mind as you move forward. I would appreciate that. I think other people would too.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a hand up?
I'm trying, I can't find it.
Okay, you may go without your hand up.
Oh, good. Hi, this is Laurie Porter, and I just had a suggestion because when Carol was talking, I'm sorry she had to leave, but when you were talking about kind of scouting out places to go, I was kind of thinking maybe as a community bridge to all of this, because it is going to be a hot issue, if you will. Would it make sense, because the scouting involves looking at things from a developer's point of view, and yes, that's your charge, that's the committee's charge. Would it be helpful to include a community member in your group to have somebody through the eyes of the residential neighborhood or the business zone or whatever, someone else, just so we can go to the ARB and say, look, this is what we saw, and this was what one of the issues was raised was da da da. I'm just wondering if it will help with the PR road ahead. So that's all.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Carl? Thank you, Carl. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Nope. Okay, then I think we are open to a motion to adjourn. And it's at 8:09.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you all.
Any, is there, all those in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
Okay.
Anyone opposed? And any abstentions? The meeting is adjourned at
Thank you all.
Have a good
Thanks,
night, everyone.
everyone. Good night.
Good night.